Okay, nerds, it's been a couple of weeks, but this is That Just Happened. This is the show where we talk about the things that we actually interacted with over the course of the last week. So let's hit the intro. That's right, this is the sister show, the companion show, if you will, to the main nerd news show, The Week in Nerddom, on the main channel, which this goes up on. So unless you're listening on audio, that's what you're already watching me on. But to kind of get a little bit more specific, so when we cover something in the news, when it finally comes out, or we have the release date numbers, or we have the opening weekend numbers, or X, Y, and Z, we kind of drop off as far as the news is concerned. But that doesn't really talk about our interactions with said thing, right? So I didn't watch Black Adam until it was already on streaming, and so that conversation was still relevant because it's very much affecting things going forward. But it wasn't really a review, it was still just a conversation on content, which is what we are trying to do here. So it's not a timely show necessarily, it's just kind of, these are the things that I finally got around to doing this week. And honestly, one of the things we're going to be talking about today, I had intended on putting in the last That Just Happened episode, and for whatever reason it didn't go in there. So we're going to talk about it here, and a couple other things that are just, you know, generally things that have happened that I have been, in spite of the crazy, have been able to interact with, more specifically some music and stuff. So let's talk about the things. First up is said music. The new of Sulfur record. I have finally listened to it in its entirety because when last we spoke of this, I was going to be doing a reaction to it, so I couldn't listen to it in its entirety. But now I have, and it's great. The name of the record is Burden of Faith. It has a whole slew of like guest vocalists. You get what's his name from Slaughter Prevail. I'm totally brain farting his name right now, and it drives me crazy. You also have Howard Jones and a number of others. The Howard Jones track is the one we did the reaction video for, and it's great. There's definitely some mixing issues that are kind of throughout, but it's more genre issues with mixing and not specifically the band and their producer and so on and so forth, though it is endemic of kind of the scene. So I really recommend of Sulfur's new record, of Sulfur's first record, because this is our first record as a band together. They're all very talented musicians, all very established musicians from previously in their careers, and so yeah, really interesting if you like extremely heavy music. There you go. So the next piece of That Just Happened, we're talking about Succession. Season 4 is in full swing. We have episodes 1, 2, and 3 as I'm recording this, but by the time this goes up, episode 4 will have happened. So definitely drop some comments down in the section below to discuss episode 4, because episode 3 was epic. Like, emotionally draining for the audience. I can only imagine if you stick around for the end and you listen to the actors break down kind of how they attacked the episode. It was super draining for the actors as well, but like just the cinematography things that they do, they try and the one of the scenes in here is like they filmed it in such a way that one of the takes was the entire 27-minute scene. So they had to choreograph like where cameras were so that you could swap out cameras, because they shoot it on film, I found out in this post episode kind of synopsis thing where they were interviewing the actors, and just incredibly interesting. So yeah, just I can't suggest Succession. Words. I can't suggest Succession enough. It is, if you are into cinema, if you're into acting and writing and just the way shot is composed and all of these things, it is a masterclass in all of those things. They're all kind of a blur because I kind of just binged the first 3 episodes between last night and this morning. And then we have, we're actually not going to talk Mandalorian just yet. The one that I wanted to get out of the way, that I intended on talking about to the last That Just Happened episode, maybe even the one before, is a movie called This Is Where I Leave You. It's Jason Bateman Adam Driver. Oh Lord, who else is in it? It's not in the notes because it was supposed to have been in a previous episode, so I apologize. But it's a very interesting, again, just kind of a very interesting look at the different methods of different actors. Like, to get super nerdy about the craft of acting, like Adam Driver and Bateman. Those are the two names that I can remember. And then also the guy who played the Hornet in the first Ant-Man movie, and then was also MODOK in the Ant-Man Quantumanium. I can't think of his name. He's in it. And Kathleen... Agatha. Why can't I think of the actress's name? I can't. Whatever. The one who played Agatha in Harkness in the WandaVision series. She's in it. Kathleen something. Whatever. So the reason I'm saying this is Adam Driver is a fantastic actor. Jason Bateman, also a very, very good actor. I mean, mostly everyone. Tina Fey is in it as well. I'm just now remembering. Sorry, names and things. But like, those two are very different kinds of actors, and you can really see the way that they approach their craft in these different ways is very, very well executed in this movie. So yeah, that's where I leave you. I think it's from like 2015, 2018, something like that. Again, not in the notes, so I didn't have. I just bringing it up because it was a thing that I could get really nerdy about. So, all right, so let's talk about Mandalorian. All right, finally watched episode 6. It took almost a week to watch episode 6, and I had expectations of the beginnings of this war that they are kind of eluding that is going to be happening at the end of this season. We're setting up the potential for some sort of armed conflict. And it seems that they're still really dragging their feet. The important pieces from this episode could have been summed up in about 10 minutes, and we got like a 50-minute episode out of it. And the reason is because we got this extra piece of this new planet with this weird technology that doesn't exist in any other Star Wars mythology ever. Very specifically doesn't exist because like it would have very much changed the way the story played out in the Holy Trilogy, because you can't tractor beam. That's a Star Trek thing. That's not a Star Wars thing. So very strange choice considering how Favreau and Filoni just are the Star Wars dudes at the moment, and they made this really kind of bad mistake as far as the lore goes. So, but like the big thing that people are taking issue with is, oh my God, Lizzo's in Star Wars, and we can't have Lizzo. Jack Black, what the hell purpose does Jack Black serve? So if you look at this, if you look at it from the perspective of, and I'm not going to be a defender of it too much because I totally agree that this episode is even worse than episode 3 of The Last of Us season 1. It just did not need to happen this way at all. But if you look at this in a larger picture kind of scheme. If you look at this as this is going to be an 8-hour movie. Each season is roughly an 8-hour movie. This is a very Star Wars-y thing to do. To have your main characters go to a place and you have to do effectively a side quest, which I think is how Favreau is approaching The Mandalorian, is like writing it like it's a video game, because a lot of the stuff that happens feels like side quest stuff, especially in season 3, and we'll get to that in a moment. But so if you look at this from that perspective, if you look at this from the idea of episode 1, very explicitly, they get sidetracked with Queen Amidala. They have to go to Naboo, or not Naboo. They have to go to I'm gonna brain fart Anakin's homeworld, and then I'm gonna get hung out to dry. I'm sorry, I brain farted it. It's ADD, whatever. So we get sidetracked. We find Anakin. We see, we free Anakin and try to free his mom, and then that kind of motivates other things going forward. So what started as effectively a side quest becomes integral to the rest of the story, and that's where this falls apart. Is because that little side quest does not become integral in any way. We come to a conclusion, which was my big issue with The Last of Us. You don't conclude side stories if you dedicate almost the entire running time of an episode in your series to a side quest. Then that side quest needs to factor in to the conclusion of your main story for that season. If not, then at the end of the entire series, which there is no end for The Mandalorian in sight. So it just feels so wrong to have this neat, tidy conclusion. This is not a procedural show. This is not CSI. This is not Criminal Minds. This is not something along those lines. Those shows have a nice, tidy bow and wrap everything up at the end of every episode. Yeah, that is how a procedural works. It's how Supernatural worked most of the time as well. So I'm not necessarily opposed to it. Like, I don't watch CSI or anything like that, but I love Supernatural, and that was a procedural show. So procedurals have their place, but Mandalorian is not exactly a procedural. There are, like I said, there's those side quest elements to it, but those in season 1 and to some extent season 2, though I think there were less side quests in season 2, have factored into the rest of the story. They have come back around and, paid off. There's going to be no payoff for this one. That's the issue. That's the actual issue. Not the fact that it happened, but the fact that they tied it up in this neat, tidy bow. We're never going to come back to this part of this story ever. It's just not going to happen. So that's what feels disheartening about this. That's what feels kind of meh. And also, like, it's slowing down the pace to get to the part that we all feel like we know is coming. And at this point, I'm kind of questioning whether or not there is going to be this armed confrontation at the end of this season, especially if the rumors are to be believed that we're going to be reintroduced to Ahsoka and then introduced to Grand Admiral Thrawn in the next episode. Then, like, we have this whole other tie-in situation to deal with that we can't fully get to where we want to go by the end of episode 8 if we're also dealing with Grand Admiral Thrawn, and it's very disjointed. And I was a big proponent of Mandalorian season 3 really up until episode 6. Like, I was like, all right, so they have to turn it around in episode 6 because you're past the halfway point. You are coming into the home stretch. Like, this needs to be the point where we stop dragging our feet and we get to where we're going. And no, that didn't happen. And it sucks. And I hate it. I don't hate Mandalorian, but I hate what they're doing right now. So I'm hoping for a better payoff in episode 7. I'm hoping for like an hour and a half long episode 8, because that seems to be, in my mind, the only way that they can actually get to where they're going in a satisfactory way. So all of that being said, I think that's what just happened this week. So going forward next week, no real plans aside from episode 7 of The Mandalorian. Filming schedule happened a little bit differently this week, so I am filming much sooner than normal, which means I will not be able to watch the most recent episode of Mandalorian before I edit and publish, or at least upload this video. So, yeah, we'll be watching Mandalorian. Very likely going to try and get my butt into a theater to see Super Mario Brothers, but that one I'm not really dedicating to. The only thing I can really dedicate to going forward is Mando. So that's the end of these episodes. I want to pass this off to you. What did you guys do this week? What just happened for you? Let's talk about that in the comments. And then, we start this whole cycle of you talk about it in the comments, and then I respond to you in the shout outs video over on the Clips channel. And it's just a back and forth, and we have this whole community thing, right? So let's talk about what happened for you. Until then, though, nerds, I appreciate your faces. Thank you very much for joining me. We'll see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here, and that just happened.